I feel for Nissan to make a mark now, given, what a beating it's taken in this market, it has to do something disruptive. So either you do that with the product or it'll have to be with the price.
It's big news when Nissan has 3 models suddenly coming up when technically they have just one, the
That's
Magnite.
right.
And you could count maybe the import, the X-Trail.
I think they've got some new models, 2 SUVs, I think a 5-seater, 7-seater,
version.
and the Triber variant.
Another one is the 4x4 powertrain, because they do have a 4x4 in this new platform, the Duster, and therefore the Nissan derivative.
At the end, product is king, and we'll have to wait and watch. And if they get a good set of products, I mean, companies have turned around just on the strength of a good product. Nissan is back in the news, and that's what we're going to be discussing on this week's edition of Deep Drive, powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
And I'm Sergius Barretto. And yes, Nissan is back in the news. It's the cover story of our magazine issue this month. I do hope you check that out as well. And Hormazd, yeah, it's really refreshing to see. And it's back on our cover story with 2 cars on the cover at least. And we know there's a third one as well, right, in the pipeline. So, just to discuss the Hormazd, I mean, the reason why we're doing this podcast obviously is because it's big news when Nissan has 3 models suddenly coming up when technically they have just one, the
That's
Magnite.
right.
And you could count maybe the import, the X-Trail.
X-Trail is non-existent. It's not sold.
Exactly.
Big disaster, big flop.
Exactly.
150 cars. I still don't know if all have sold. They'll only sell on discount because the car came just ridiculously overpriced. So yeah, but I think Nissan is back in the news. I'm not sure if it's for a fantastic reason. I mean, they've announced new models, but there's a fair level of skepticism with Nissan because of the way it's performed, because of its global issues. Now this whole merger with Honda, which has also become a bit messy. But I think
Which is a lot happening actually now.
Yeah, I think they're still hoping it will happen. So I think that's, I think Honda had certain conditions, wanted the CEO to step down. So all that. So it still could happen. I think I don't really see what the value in that is globally. There's so much overlap between the models. It's something that seems to be a force fit. But coming to India, I think, Sergius, you've done the story. 2 models.
And me, yes. But 2 models. But Hormazd, there's something interesting which we should start before we dive into the models. I thought we'd discuss. There are 2 models. Yes, the SUVs, which we know based on the Duster platform. There's the Triber, their version of the Triber, finally, after so many years. But after announcing this, they've also announced the fact that they're exiting the joint venture, which is exactly the place where these cars will be built. How do you read
exiting the plant?
Yeah, the plant, the joint venture plant. How do you read that actually?
Well, I think there are 2 ways to read it. I think that plant really was like a white elephant.
Huge, big spot.
Build a huge Taj Mahal. Obviously, they had big plans when they built it. Like Ford, at that time, the Indian market, in 2010 was seen to be a 7 million market by 2020. That never happened. We're still not 7 million.
Yeah.
Far from it. And so I think everyone put in a lot of capacity at that time, and Renault and Nissan also with export plans, everything had put in a lot of capacity. But clearly, we've seen what a mess both companies have fallen in, especially after Carlos Ghosn, and then just the whole global scenario really not played to their favor. And then when that happens, India really becomes a low priority. But I think so. But something has to be done. This is a market you can't really get out of in that sense. But I think by exiting the joint venture for the plant, or let's say giving up their own, selling their stake in the plant back to partner Renault, it makes them very asset light. I think, as you said, the kind of burden or the costs of running a plant are not there. So kind of it leaves them with certain capital to invest back in product development. And they've committed 700 million euros, which is no small sum, into a range of products. But at the same time, if things don't go well, it makes it much easier to up sticks and leave the country.
Yes.
Don't forget, brands which have exited with plants, notably GM and Ford, has been a very painful and protracted exit, because you've got a lot of liabilities with a plant. I mean, even GM, it took them 3 years finally, to kind of the transition, which finally Hyundai bought their plant. It was not easy. Ford still have one plant over here. It's not that everyone's in line waiting to buy this plant and take it up from them. And clearly, with a plant of that sort of capacity, there's too much capacity. I don't think anyone would buy that plant. So it makes it much easier for Nissan to leave if things don't work out. But, one shouldn't just assume things won't work out. I think they've got some new models, two SUVs, I think a 5-seater, 7-seater, and the Triber variant. I don't know, but I think maybe a little too late, because again, those are entering segments which are super competitive. Maybe the MPV will have a bit of a niche, because the Triber really doesn't have competition, and this will be a competitor only to the Triber, so that could have some volume. But that the Magnite and this, I don't know, how much volume and scale that will give Nissan.
True. Hormazd, but I think, it's also in a way quite clever in the sense that, or rather clever, I would say, it's the best entry for them, because really it's the 4.3 meters SUV segment. It's really a segment where, the profit margins aren't so brutal as, let's say, the sub 4 meter, which is also crowded. So if you're entering, obviously you got to enter with an SUV, and 4.3 seems like a good place. They've got the partner Renault Duster version, so economies of scale. And like you said, the differentiator is the Triber. I mean, a genuine 7-seater within a sub 4 meter footprint. So I wouldn't rule them out, because there's something there. And I think, looking at the new Duster, which will be obviously the Nissan version here as well, it's got some innovative stuff, going for it. Internationally, they do have a strong hybrid. Unfortunately, we know that's not going to come here soon. It's going to be the 1.3 liter petrol, which is the one with Mercedes, the one the group had developed with Mercedes.
They had this engine earlier also in the previous generation Duster.
Exactly.
156 horsepower, something like
the 1.3 TPE as they call it.
That's right.
So that's going to be here. Good engine, we know it. And interiors, very spacious. The reviews abroad, at least, everyone has been saying, fantastic car, looks well over what its price, bodes well for a market like India. It's got innovative stuff. There's this small little thing I quite like called the U-clip system. They're little like GoPro mounts, stuff that you love actually, these little GoPro mounts.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you can
I didn't know
attach, and you can attach different stuff to it. So if there's a cup holder here and you think, no, I'd like a mobile phone holder here, you unclip the cup holder, put a mobile holder here. Maybe you want a pocket or a pouch or a torch somewhere on the boot. So you have these little clips, and people are 3D printing their own little, handy things to fit that
mount.
Fit that mount. So it's got a lot going for it also. So yeah, I mean, we should get behind the wheel obviously to see how they perform.
Sergius, I think what you said, I completely agree with. It was the right segment to get into it. The point I'm trying to make is, my concern is the engines, a 1 liter and a 1.3. We know these are the two engines. There's no diesel. There's still a diesel market. They're not going to come in with that. There's no hybrid either. There is a hybrid market. We've seen iRider doing well with that. So they've just got these two engines, which again puts them in a very narrow segment of the market. And for reference, I'm looking at the numbers the Skoda and Volkswagen twins are doing with a 1 liter and 1.5 liter. Not super great volumes. I don't know what the feature set will be. Hopefully, as you said, they'll bring in a lot of features. But I feel for Nissan to make a mark now, given, what a beating it's taken in this market, it has to do something disruptive. So either you do that with the product, or it'll have to be with the price, that, they make it so attractively priced that, people will just go for it. And frankly, I think one thing going for Nissan as products go, and, honestly, I drove the Magnite facelift after a while. Just had it here. I was really impressed with the car. Sometimes the brand is so down, you kind of think that the products are not great, but this was quite the opposite. I mean, it is a really well-sorted product. So much better than something like a Tata Punch, which sells in far greater numbers. In terms of refinement, in terms of the gearbox, in terms of the engine. I even like the cabin layout, certain things. I think even they've spent a lot on doing the cabin up, so I think, that sort of thing is quite critical. Of course, they forgot something like a sunroof. But, I think that's typical poor product planning. As products go, they make well-engineered products and good products. It's just that I think the way they sometimes spec them, I think the network is very poorly developed. They don't invest too much in brand building, which is where they are right now. I think, to be honest, they've got a shortage of good people, which really makes a big difference. These are concerns which there are. But I think, at the end, product is king. And we'll have to wait and watch. And if they get a good set of products, I mean, companies have turned around just on the strength of a good product.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely, Hormazd. In fact, I think what could also help Nissan is the fact that there's going to be a Duster version too. So, people would probably see it as, hey, this is the Renault Duster as well, with a different maybe flavor and hopefully get attracted to it. We do know, as we have on the renders, the front end looks very much like a Patrol. Nissan Patrol, they've done this really massive bonnet, deep sort of recesses, flared thing. So, it's speaking to that typical SUV sort of buyer, which, frankly, I mean, that's what sells SUVs. We know
That's
that,
right. And don't forget the HR engines, the HR10 and the HR30 are Nissan engines.
Right.
Whereas the BR10, which was the basic 1 liter, was a Renault engine.
Yes.
So even Nissan controls the powertrain in that sense. So I think clearly that is one advantage they will have. They will be passing that engine on to Renault, and obviously there are costs which go with that.
Right.
Maybe we might even have an HR10 in the MPV, which Renault hasn't done so far.
Exactly.
So I think, that then could be, coming to the MPV, I think that could be a good segment for them. But my worry is with MPVs, brand loyalty is so important. People are just fixated with things like the Ertiga on one end and the Innova on the other end. They are not very risk averse.
Right.
Oh, sorry, they are risk averse.
They are
risk averse. So trying a brand which they're not sure of, MPV buy a lot more conservative in that sense. So I'm not sure. But again, as I said, product is king. If they deliver a really good product with a strong engine, a good transmission in a 4-meter package at a fantastic price, who knows? That could really be the game changer which we're looking for. Because when the Triber came, I think as a design, it was just absolutely fantastic. It's just such a well-conceived, and it looks great.
Yeah, we've spoken about it so often.
Absolutely.
Also on this podcast.
Yeah,
Too.
I mean, really, I think it's really one of the most, well designed and engineered, well-designed products that there is, and well-packaged products that there is.
So, what was interesting, the Nissan version of this, Rishad, as you know, was in Japan. Him being available at the time to go to Japan, our bike guy, by the way, the bike editor. But the new incoming CEO, Ivan Espinosa, I hope I've said that correct. But he said that, yes, we will have, the Triber version, the same mechanicals and things like that. And Rishad did ask him, saying that, but what about the turbo engine, which everyone's been waiting for in the Triber? And he said, well, not for now, but I'm not ruling that out.
Right.
So, you're right. It could be, given the fact that it is their engine.
Yeah, they're very expensive because I think, it's not localized. So the delta cost between the localized BR10, which is again a non-turbo, so fundamentally is a cheap engine, and it's localized, so it's that much cheaper. I think HR10 is much more expensive. But I think as an option, I'm sure they would look at it. Yeah.
Absolutely. What was another reason why I'm personally also excited about the products, and I'm hopeful that they do well. Another one is the 4x4 powertrain, because they do have a 4x4 in this new platform, the Duster, and therefore the Nissan derivative with the 1.3. And I know you loved the previous gen, like
that was like K9
right?
diesel. Yeah,
right. With the 4x4.
No, it was a fantastic all-wheel drive. Really worked well, and it was really fantastic in that segment. Probably better than all the Mahindras at that time. I remember that time with the XUV 500, we did a 4x4 test also, and it really did fantastically well. But Sergius, honestly, how many people really want 4x4? It's still a very, very small niche. It might come again just as, let's say a flagship model for the imagery. But I don't think really it's going to be a game changer in that sense, because people don't want the 4x4. But yeah, I mean, it's great to have. And, we keep saying that it's a small volume and not many people want it, but there are enough people who do want it and don't have it.
Right.
So I think for them it's good. And sometimes you can't avoid, or you shouldn't ignore the niche demand, which sometimes are the enthusiasts and your brand builders. So these are the people who will build the brand.
Exactly. Brand builders, and 4x4 and all-wheel drive system with that, front bush-looking Patrol-like front end, I think could be a tantalizing possibility.
Absolutely.
Hormazd, that's the product plan, at least for the immediate future.
We've not talked about EVs. There's no real EV plan there,
Exactly.
which is really, that to me is the big worry for Nissan. They've talked about an EV and they've tried looking at EVs, both Renault and Nissan, and looking at their product portfolio with these products, there is no way they can meet CAFE targets without an EV.
Absolutely.
They don't even have a hybrid.
Absolutely.
And just doing it with a pure petrol thing is impossible. Volkswagen as Skoda facing the same problem, but they are working on some EV model. It's a race against time because 2027 And they've got up till March 28 really to meet all the targets. So, even if they start in the middle of that financial year, 27-28,
Right.
they can meet it. But, it's still just around the corner now.
Absolutely.
And from what I understand, Renault, Nissan have been exploring compact EVs, affordable EVs, but I still don't think they have a solution.
No, they don't, Hormazd. In fact, again at this conference that they just had, Ivan, the CEO, again said that hybrids is an interesting tech, but we need EVs in India. He did acknowledge that, and he said that look, we are working on a low cost solution now. We're working looking into a low cost solution, but also the ARIA as an outside possibility. Now, the ARIA as an outside possibility, well, I don't know.
They're not going to sell in the volume
Exactly.
to give them. I mean, it just might be as a, and it's really sad because Nissan was actually got the first mover advantage globally in EVs with the Leaf.
Exactly.
They thought of bringing the Leaf to India. Of course, that didn't work.
Yeah, we've reviewed it here in India.
Exactly.
I did that review.
They brought the Note range extender, which was there again well ahead of its time, but they couldn't bring it. Now Maruti are looking at range extender. So Nissan have the technology. They have the they can do the products. But again, it's this whole thing of committing to localizing at a deep level. That is the only solution. But no company will do that when you don't have the network, and correspondingly you will not get the volume to justify that kind of minimum scale you need for localization to work. So to me, it's a tough one more than these products. I'm quite excited about them like you are, and I think as you said, some quirky design possibilities which we can see on them, but it's a cafe that is really going to be the big challenge.
Yeah.
And not meeting that, the penalties will be too heavy for any company to bear. And, you'll just push them into deep losses. And that beyond a point is going to be untenable.
Hormazd, you mentioned range extender. And incidentally, that's my column in this issue, where there's a very tantalizing, it's a difficult proposition, very tantalizing proposition where we know Maruti are struggling so far still with sort of productionizing their series hybrid. They're going it alone without Toyota, as we've reported. Could Nissan actually lend out their technology, given that it's brilliant? They're now getting into the third gen, apparently, of e-power.
I think the problem with Suzuki is not the technology per se. It's packaging the range extender into smaller products. Because don't forget, you have a 1.2 liter engine, a 3-cylinder engine, and you've got to put in a hybrid motor in that. So in cars smaller than the Fronx and all, it is becoming a challenge. And they had a plan to hybridize
the Fronx.
Yeah, the Fronx is they're fine with that. That's not a problem. It's smaller cars. Maybe if they were looking long term, even at a WagonR, for example, as everything going hybrid, once they localize and really make the technology affordable. And I don't think Nissan would work because the Z12V engine of Suzuki's is made for the hybrid. If at all, it would be the other way around. It's a totally localized engine.
They wouldn't want to localize another powertrain.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense from that. And don't forget, the range extender also was a 1.2 3-cylinder, or was it a 1.5?
The Nissan version is 1.2.
The Note, the Nissan.
The Note, the 1.2, and they have a 1.5 as well.
Correct, yeah. So both, so I think, and that Note, I remember driving that range extender in Delhi.
Okay.
It was here just as a demo car. I mean, it felt like an EV actually for a lot of it, and made a lot of sense.
True.
And I think, look what's happened with range extender technology. It's like come back in a big way. It's really working well in China, getting some crazy range with that. So I think...
Nissan themselves, they've just announced like the generation 3 of the e-power system.
Absolutely.
Third gen.
And you watch when people do hybrids in India, they'll all be looking at range extender technologies. It won't be the, let's say, the parallel hybrid which Toyota does, because that is quite expensive. That's what Toyota does. At the top end, it may be, but you'll find that range extenders are there. So, yeah, I mean, it's quite ironic that the Note had come with a range extender to India and they couldn't make it. Again, it was just too expensive. I think at that time they were hoping to get some excise concession to pass it off more like an EV. And, there have been kind of pitches to the government for that. Look, it's an EV. It's not charged by a plug socket. It's just charged by an engine.
It's charged by an engine.
Yeah,
but it's a pure EV.
The primary drive is an EV. So, but that's not working. Obviously, it's seen as a hybrid. So I think right now what we know is that this is what they have: pure petrol powertrains, products look very promising. I think you can expect, as I said, a certain level of quality in them. But is that enough? Where are the EVs? Where are the vehicles that will help them meet CAFE targets? That to me is the big worry.
Speaking of EVs and the low-cost EVs, so Renault are working with their, I would say, not subsidiary, but they bought out this company Ampere, right? And they have tasked Ampere with developing a low-cost version of an EV on the Twingo platform. It will be sold as a Nissan as well. Do you think that's an outside possibility for a market like India, given that it's going
I don't think so, because Twingo platform is just too expensive.
starts at a high point?
Starts at a high point. It's for Europe. It's not made for India. And, we've seen all these European companies. They have these small compact cars in Europe, but none of them really make it to India just because, the platform is super expensive in any case, not optimized for Indian costs and conditions. Just the way Skoda did with Volkswagen did with India 2.0, that was really very deeply localized platform. So I don't think they're doing that with the EV right now. I mean, they should be looking at it. Maybe they are also, but kind of info I have that is still not going to be ready in time for the new CAFE norm. So I think they might do it a bit later. They might have a strategy that, okay, we'll take a hit for the first year, 28, 29, we'll get it. They'll have to get it. But, their point is, if you have to stay in India, you have to bring an EV. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Right.
So I think that's, the kind of the situation Nissan is in. But, I would really like to see some of their CBUs come in. I think the petrol,
Priced well.
yeah, priced well. Looking at a petrol, I think a right-hand drive version, now it's a V6. I think that could be something that, we should look at. I think that really, petrol has a certain aura about it. Land Cruiser petrol, these are the cars which really kind of have that road presence. And I'm sure even if they're priced well, but are costlier than the X-Trail, they'll probably sell in more numbers because people would see value in that.
Exactly. I mean, people are buying Fortuners at ridiculous prices. So
Exactly.
for sure, you could look at a petrol, really butch SUV. It's insane to see them even in the UAE. I mean, a lot of obviously the locals buy them there, but Indians buy them there and swear by them. So yeah, you're right. I think there are a good mix between some CBUs. Along with their, the locally built shared models with Duster could actually help them through and establish. And, just going back to what you said, Hormazd, like when they've exited the manufacturing JV at least, it's easy for them, therefore, to shut the brand down, let's say, or exit. But it also puts the pressure on Renault to succeed, right? I mean, right now, because they are left with this big plant around their neck.
No, but they're going to be making models for Nissan as well. So for Renault, they would want Nissan to succeed to fill their plant too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. So it's like Renault have to also push these guys along. I don't think there'll be that level of let's say in-house fighting between them. It should be, I think, more collaborative, right?
Well, I think but typically it's collaborative at a product level at times, which I think it is. I think.
I was asking you on strategy level.
I think. I still think they both need the scale. So I think let's put it this way. One Duster won't be enough. One Duster and one Nissan equivalent will still sell more than just one Duster alone. So I think it's a combined volume that they want, and they have to do the same products. I think also their level of differentiation, is going to be similar to what we have between Volkswagen and Skoda, not as much as between, let's say, Kia and Hyundai.
Right. And not as less as a Maruti and a Toyota.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all. And I think we've seen that. So I think that's what it's going to be. And but I think, I'm quite, as you said, it'll be interesting to see these products. And a 7-seater, I think that is another opportunity because there's not too much action in that space. Of course, you've got the XUV 700, which is really top dog over there. Safari 7-seater Safari will have a petrol engine along with the diesel going on. So, there's really not too much competition there. And Hector Plus hasn't really done super well. And then you've got the more expensive 7-seaters.
Yeah, those really.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people do want 7-seaters still, So I think there is an opportunity over there. But again, I think a lot of product gaps still. So from a long-term perspective, they'll really have to do something. And maybe if they, the Honda deal goes through, that would give them a lot of Honda platforms to rebadge as Nissan. You could have the Honda EV SUV, which is coming, already developed, and Nissan gets its own version for that at an incremental cost. So I think the benefits of a Honda tie-up could be felt in India.
In India.
And I think both really, could benefit from that. And they'll have two plants at that time. So, they don't have to be totally contingent on Renault. They can have Tapukara if it works out well with Honda. But again, we'll see. We don't know if this deal is happening. Right now, what we do know is that they've announced these three models, looking at an EV. They've got an X-Trail, which is really doing nothing. Hopefully, they'll bring in some CBUs. As you said, the Aria they're looking at. And obviously, that's at the high end, just as a maybe a Halo model, so to speak. But I think, but I do like their engineering, Sergius. I think they make some good, solid cars.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Hormazd, that's interesting. I mean, if the Honda deal does come through, obviously, it would be very interesting actually also because they've exited one JV, at least manufacturing JV, got into another, could help in India. So I think that's what Nissan's future looks like. It's hinged on products doing well and possibly a partner.
Well, I think, the Honda thing is still not done. I would say it's a long shot. By the time things materialize, it's a very complex kind of arrangement that it would be. I really don't know how it would work out. And it's not really a dream marriage, so to speak. I mean, each one's got their issues. It's just, kind of circumstances are making them come together. But I think, on their products, what we know, what we've seen, and I think that's quite exciting, actually. I think initially they are, as I said, entering segments which are already there. But I'm sure they'll make their mark. May not be super volumes. But again, if it's just contract manufacturing and they're not compelled to have a base volume to keep the lights on in the plant, that helps them.
Right.
So I don't think they'll have that much volume pressure, which is a good thing. Only challenge is CAFE that they need to meet. But, I'm sure they'll be working on some solution. Yeah, so I think all I can say is interesting times for Nissan ahead. And with that, it's a wrap on this week's edition of Deep Drive. Don't forget to tune in every Saturday at 11 a.m. And you can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So thanks for watching. See you again same time next week.